Hi Quilty friends, Christine here from the Quilters Retreat with another episode in our Quilter Tech series. We've already covered how to create single quilt panels using tools like ChatGPT, Ideogram, and Midjourney. But we've gotten several requests for how to create multi-block panels on a single yard of fabric or on a fat quarter. So you can create entire fabric sets or multi-block panels on a single yard of fabric. If you've ever wanted to design a matching set of 6.5 or 9.5 inch blocks, or wanted to make a panel that looks like a sampler, this video is for you. Quilter Tech. Quilter Tech. Quilter Tech. Stitching smart, stitching bright. Now before we jump in, let me show you a few fabric panels that I've created so you can see some of the possibilities. Now this first one is our Be Kind Bear panel. It's about 27 inches wide by width of fabric, so it fits in less than a yard. It has one center block, six 6.5 inch coordinating blocks, and even a soft background that acts like sashing to pull it all together. Add a few borders and you've got a perfect quilt. Next up is Panda and Robot panel, and this uses the same layout idea but is scaled up to fit an entire yard. It's great when you want a big statement piece for the center of the quilt, especially for kids' quilts or wall hangings. And this is our Foxglove and Lavender panel. It consists of 4 blocks on a single yard of fabric. Now these blocks can be trimmed to the perfect size for your quilt pattern. We've paired it with our Hummingbird panel for the perfect queen size quilt. Finally, this one is called Botanical Reverie. It's a full yard panel too, but this time the layout includes one large main block along with 4 smaller complementary designs. Together they cover the entire yard. It's perfect for quilters who love variety but still want to have a cohesive theme. I haven't finished designing the quilt pattern yet, but this is what I'm planning so far. Quilter Tech. Quilter Tech. If you're a quilter, you've probably already collected fat quarters, but if not, let me explain more about what that is. A fat quarter is a 1/4 yard of fabric, but instead of being a long, skinny strip, it's cut more square, typically 18 inches by 21 inches. That shape is so much more useful for quilters because it gives us larger, squarer pieces to cut from. And Spoonflower actually lets you order fat quarters directly when you choose your fabric size. In this video, we're going to focus on how to fill your fat quarters or full yards with individual blocks or artwork, like mini panels you can later cut apart and sew into your quilt. In a future video, I'll show you how to take those same design elements and create complementary yardage, fabric with an all-over repeating design that coordinates perfectly with your panels. That way, you'll be able to design an entire line of fabric yourself, right from your computer, and use it for borders, backings, or matching accessories. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Now let's talk about fabric size options and current pricing, because knowing how much space you have to design is key before you open Canva. Now, for Petal Signature Cotton, which is the fabric choice that I use for quilting, you can see their fat quarter pricing is at full price $11 and their yard is $20. And, keep in mind the Spoonflower does run sales quite often, and I've seen the prices come down as much as 25%. So you can get a pretty good deal for custom fabric if you keep your eye out for a good deal. Now you can see already that if you want to have 2 fat quarters, that would be $22 if you buy them separately, or you can take up to a yard and do just $20. To lay out our image that we'll upload to Spoonflower, we're going to use Canva, just like we did in part 1 of this series. Now, if you didn't watch part 1, Canva is a free, easy-to-use design website that works right in your browser. They do have a pro plan that's about $15 a month, and they typically offer you a free trial for 30 days. The pro plan is nice to have if you want to use some of the huge library of elements, like their graphics and photos, or if you want to use templates for your quilt panel. But you don't need it to follow along with us today. If you don't already have a Canva account, you'll need to sign up. The good news is it's very simple. You can sign up with your Google account, your Facebook account, or an email address. Any of those work fine. We're going to start by creating a custom canvas size that matches our Spoonflower fabric dimensions. Now, since we're going to start with a yard of fabric, and we'll do fat quarters a little later in the video. So you would choose Create, then Custom, then enter the dimensions for the size we want. Now, we talk about our yardage dimensions in part 1, but I'll go through that here as well. Now, since we're starting with a yard of fabric, we're looking at a 36-inch by 42-inch tall piece of fabric. Now, Spoonflower wants you to provide an image with a resolution of 150 dots per inch to get a good fabric print. If you multiply that by the number of inches, you see we want a design that is 5,400 by 6,300 pixels. But like we talked about in part 1, Canva can only create a design that is up to 4320 by 5040. No problem for us though. We're going to create our design at 4320 by 5040, and then we're going to upsize it using Canva or another tool to the size that Spoonflower wants. Now, when you're ready to do that part, watch part 1 in the series and I'll walk you through upsizing and uploading it to Spoonflower step by step. I'll put that link in the description. So let's create our design with the dimensions of 4320 by 5040. Good. Now that we've created our design, we want to place our blocks. So let's pause and consider the size of the blocks that we need. Okay, now we've just said that the canvas size that we're using is 4320 pixels by 5040 pixels, and that's our 36 by 42 inches. Now, if we want a 9.5-inch block, let's say, placed on this canvas, we need to understand how many pixels are in an inch of fabric. After that, the calculation becomes easy. Now, I'm going to do this calculation with you, but I'll also then show you where you can find a cheat sheet that does all the math for you. But for now, let's say that we have our width of 36 inches, which is 4320 pixels, and we want to calculate how many pixels per inch. We simply take those pixels and divide it by the 36 inches. So that gives us 120 pixels per inch. Now, similarly, we can confirm that math using the height, which we know is 5040 pixels. It's 42 inches, so we're going to take 5040 divided by 42, and again, 120 pixels per inch. So we've confirmed that in our canvas, 1 inch is 120 pixels, and that's what we're going to use to calculate how many pixels are in a 9.5-inch block. So for a 9.5-inch block, we're going to take our 120 pixels, we're going to multiply it by the 9.5 inches that we want, and we come up with 1140. So that tells us that our 9.5-inch block, which is a square block, is 1140 by 1140 pixels square. Now we could do that same math for a 6.5-inch block, and then we have 780 by 780 square. So now you know the sizes in pixels that your squares need to be on your panel to represent 9.5 and 6.5-inch blocks. Now, in order to place our blocks on our canvas, we're going to use what Canva calls frames. So we'll go to Elements, we'll type in Frame, and then you will see this display down here shows you different shapes of frames. We're doing blocks, so we're going to choose the square frame here. Now, the next thing we need to do is tell it exactly the size this frame should be. We already did that math. So we click on the frame, we click on Position, and then we're able to modify width and height, which is 1140 by 1140. I'm going to lock the aspect ratio just to kind of keep it from getting warped if I try to move it around. So now we'll place this here, and we can copy and paste as many of these as we want. These are representing all the 9.5-inch blocks that will appear on our panel. Now, as you can guess, it would be better if they were lined up, right? If we're doing a sampler and we want the panel to be perfect and perfectly aligned with all the blocks, or even if we just want it to be easy to cut out and we want to fit as much as possible, it's important to know where to place these blocks so we can get them perfectly aligned. Now, I do have a cheat sheet for that. I'll show it right here. And for our 9.5-inch block, what it tells us is that our X coordinate for our upper block should be 225 pixels, And our Y coordinate should be 96. So that means we should be 225 pixels in from the left side, and we should be 96 pixels down from the top. And we'll enter those right here. Great. Now we also want to move everybody up so it's the same level at the top. So for each of these, we are going to set our Y coordinate to 96. Now for this rightmost block, we still want to set our Y coordinate to 96, but we also want to set our X coordinate so it's the farthest it should be over to the right-hand side. And according to our guide, that is 2955 pixels. So we make that adjustment here. Now that they're all aligned at the top, and the right and the left one are perfectly positioned where they're supposed to be, I'm going to show you how to make sure the center block is in the right place. Now to do that, we're going to click and drag, and we're going to capture all three of those. You'll see them highlight, right click, and then you'll see this down here. It is space evenly, tidy up. And this is a very cool feature because it's going to position that center block right in the middle of those other two, so it's perfectly spaced between the leftmost and the rightmost block. Now again, we can highlight all three, and we can copy and paste, and we're going to make three more. And we can click on them and drag them down so that we are able to make our second row of 9.5-inch blocks. There. And we can keep doing that. Our guide says we should be able to have 3 columns of blocks and 4 rows of blocks, and that would perfectly fit within our yard of fabric. Okay. Now, again, with my dragging, I may not have gotten them in exactly the right spot, so I'm going to click and I'm going to use my guide to change the X and Y position of the leftmost bottom box and the rightmost bottom box. And once I have those positioned, I'll be able to position everything else. Now, according to my guide, the X position for the leftmost block is still 225. So we'll go ahead and set that. But the bottom position, that's the Y position for my box, should be 3804. So we'll go ahead and set those. There. Now he's in the perfect position. So he's perfectly lined up. And now for the final one, we're going to set that same bottom position, but we are also going to set the rightmost position, just like we did at the top row. It's 2955. Now I can select them all at this point because I haven't dealt with the ones in the center, but I'm going to choose space evenly, tidy up, and it's going to space everybody perfectly aligned to the upper right, the upper left, the lower right, and the lower left. Now everything's perfectly spaced, and I'm ready to create 12 9.5-inch blocks on my yard of fabric. Now, the great thing about frames is we can go ahead and find our images or our artwork or graphics, whatever we've chosen. You might want to look at some of our earlier videos to find out how to create those graphics. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and use the graphics that are available in Canva just so you can see how to do this. So I'm going to filter for cats. Let's find some nice cat photos that we can put as blocks in our panel. Again, there's graphics as well that you can choose from. Okay, now we filter for cats, and I can see a number of adorable pictures of cats. So I'm going to click on them, and then I'm going to drag them. And the way I drag them is a little bit careful. I need to pull it over so that my mouse is right in the center of that block. You can see it highlight, and then I'm going to let go of my mouse, and it's going to drop it right into that block for me. Perfect. Let's go get some more. Now, each one of these you can fill with the same artwork. You can fill it with different artwork. Let's have a little fun and find all of the cutest cat photos and put them in our blocks. We're going to go ahead and do each one If for some reason you have to drop it in the wrong place, that's okay. There is an undo function that you can use, but we're going to go ahead. We've got 3 more. Ooh, that's cute. Put that there. Ooh, like that. And there we go. So now our 12 9.5-inch blocks are all made. I'll pause for a second and just make sure that you're aware that if you're using Canva, you do need to look at the licensing in terms of each of these graphics that you're choosing, so that you can be sure you are allowed to use it for a fabric panel. Again, you may already have your own graphics, and so you would be using those. But for the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to just use the Canva graphics so I can show you how to fill up your fabric panel. Now, you may notice some of our graphics or our photos didn't really fit very well because they're a little far to the right or a little far to the left. And so in that case, we want to move them. And the way that we would do that is simply to go to the graphic. You're going to double click on it. This is on your frame. Double click. You're not going to move your frame. You're going to move your graphic in the frame. And so you simply then click and drag, and you should see that graphic move inside that frame. Let me show you again. This one here, double click, and then you can see we get kind of a different view, and we're moving that graphic inside that frame. Now they are perfectly centered. Now, this would look extra special if, in fact, we had a background color that went well with these images, and that's very easy to do. You're going to click on the background section. You can see it's currently white. So click on the background section, and that will highlight the background. There you go. You see it's all highlighted. Now click on this icon here, and that lets you change the color. And you can pick any color that you like. You see on the screen, there's lots of basic colors or colors that it's derived for some of the photos. Or if you want to make your very own color, like something very particular in mind, you can go up here to this icon and click, and then you can choose from all the colors of the rainbow. You can change particular color, you can change the tone or the lightness or darkness of those colors. When you're satisfied with the one that you want, you can just leave it and you're done. Now you have a beautiful panel. It's got a lovely background. And you are now ready to export it to bring it into Spoonflower. Check out video 1 where I show you exactly how to do that. And now a message from our sponsor, me. Now, before we jump back into Canva, I want to take a quick break to show you some of the fun things we have over at the Quilters Retreat store. Because if you love quilting as much as I do, you're going to find something here that makes you smile. We've got a whole line of quilting themed t-shirts, soft, comfy, and made for quilters who aren't afraid to show their stitching spirit. They make great gifts too. We're also adding new fabric panels and quilt kits every month. These are perfect for a weekend project or a heartfelt gift. And for those of you who like to spread quilting joy beyond the sewing room, we've got greeting cards made just for quilters. They're a sweet way to stay connected with your quilting friends. And don't forget our fun quilty mugs. So if you'd like to treat yourself or find the perfect gift for your favorite quilter, come visit us at the Quilters Retreat. Now, let's get back to designing your quilt panels. Now, I'll keep a link to the shop in the description, and if you go to our shop, under Quilting Fun, you will see Quilting Games and Tools. And in there, you will find lots of different tools and games that we make available for quilters. And the first one that you see here, that's the link to where we're talking about this video. And in there, you will be able to scroll down and find the link to the quilt sizing guide. Now, this is completely free. You can download it and use it for your purposes. We have guides for both square and non-square blocks within a full yard and fat quarters. And now let's do fat quarters. So we said before, a fat quarter is just 1/4 of a yard. It's just cut in a way that it's more fat than skinny. And in this case, we did the math. We know the specific dimensions of our fat quarter, which is 3150 by 2700. So let's go ahead and put that in here. Now, because this is not too big for Canva, we don't have to worry about upsizing or rotating. We're going to do it in exactly the size the Spoonflower expects. Now we're going to go get frames just like we did before. And just as we did the math at the beginning, we're going to do 6.5-inch blocks now. So we want them to be 975 by 975 pixels. So again, we're going to set the width and the height of these. We're going to go ahead, position it in the right place. Oops, let me lock that ratio. And then we are going to copy and paste. Now, according to the cheat sheet, we can get 6 blocks. 3 columns, 2 rows. 6 blocks. Okay. And just as we did before, we're going to use our cheat sheet to set the X and Y coordinates. So these are perfectly aligned within the Canva canvas or in the fat quarter. So the X position is 56. The Y position is 250. The middle block, we want it to be in the same position, top to bottom, which is the Y position. And the last one, again, we want it to be 250 at the Y position, but we're going to set it to 2118, highlight, space evenly, tidy up, and there we have it. And just like before, we copy and paste. You probably guess pretty much where it should be, but we can adjust it so that it's perfect. And in this case, it's still going to be 56 on the X position, but the Y is now going to be 1475. And the Y for this one should also be 1475. I was pretty close. And finally for this one as well, 1475, we're lining them up on the bottom. And the X position is going to be 2118. There we go. Now we highlight the whole thing and we do space evenly, tidy up. And now everything is perfectly aligned. Now let's go find some images to put with them. Let's do bears this time. Yeah, bears with balloons. And let's find a cute graphic. Now, for this demonstration, I'm going to use the same graphic in each one. This one's just adorable. So I'm going to go ahead and put in each of these. Let's say in my quilt, I want 6.5-inch blocks that have exactly this graphic on them. There we go. Aren't they adorable? And now let's make a nice background. We'll click on this background section, go to our color wheel, and go here so we can pick my exact color. Or I could click this eyedropper tool and pick from one of the colors in the image. Oh, that's perfect. I like that green. So this is what our fabric panel would look like if we were to order from Spoonflower. Now, we didn't do fat quarters in the first video, so I'm going to walk you through how to do that. We're just going to download it. You can download it as a PNG or a JPEG. Everything is already set in terms of resolution. We've got exactly the right size for 150 dots per inch. Now, once we have it downloaded, we're going to go to Spoonflower. So you're going to need to create an account and sign up for access to the site. Once you have it, you're going to upload a design. And then you're going to choose your file. Now, this is the one that you downloaded to your file system. It's probably in your downloads folder. And now it's going to ask you to confirm that you have the rights to these images. So if you're good, go ahead and click agree and continue. And now it's uploading the design. Great. Now, if you'd named your file something other than Untitled Design, it would have that name here. Unfortunately, I didn't name my file, so bear with me as Untitled Design. So now it's bringing it in. And you can see I could make curtains out of this. I could make a lovely bedspread if I wanted to, but we're going to choose fabric. So I'm going to click on the fabric and under that, the buy button. And now I can choose what fabric I want and what size that I want. I'm going to stick with the Petal Signature Cotton, which comes up for me because I've always used it, but I'm going to choose back quarter. And as soon as you do, you can see the left-hand side kind of changes and it sort of shows you a little bit like what you're going to get. Now, their first image has this rippley thing in their image, which makes it a little bit hard to see what you're actually looking at, but we can confirm the measurements. It's 21 by 18, which is exactly what we would expect. An easier way to look at this is to actually go to the second image on the list. So let me close this one. And we'll go down to the second image. And if we click on that, oh, that's cute. You can kind of see now exactly what the fabric panel will look like. It's a little more obvious that it fits perfectly within this fabric panel, just like we saw in Canva. And we can go ahead and add it to our cart. Now, you might have noticed that this is not $11. I happened to be shooting this video when they were having a 30% off sale on fabric, so it's quite a bit less expensive when they do have their sales. So if you sign up for Spoonflower, you get on their email list, they will let you know when they're having a sale. And there you have it. There's your fat quarter ordered. As we talked about in the first video, Spoonflower usually takes about 5 days to produce it, and then it'll ship it to you. That may be another 5 days. I've also seen them get it to you much faster, but still, you probably want to plan on about 10 days for you to upload the design, purchase it, and then have it delivered to your door. Wonderful. And that's how you can design your own fat quarters or multi-block panels using Canva. You can use the same technique to make fabric samplers, to make mini quilt kits, or even design matching gift sets for the holidays. And if you found this helpful, please be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and check out the rest of the Quilter Tech series. And as always, happy quilting!
Quilting every day, quilting every day.